In order to find peace, we need to overcome the mental perception of division between us and others. Unfortunately, today we've been conditioned so much to be divided, whether it be through race, whether it be through skin color, the countries that we come from, our sexuality, whatever it may be, there is division sown in all of these areas of life. And what yoga teaches us is that to overcome those divisions, we need to see what is common at the center of each and every being. And the Bhagavad Gita, through this ancient wisdom, guides us to a place of being able to see that divine essence, that peace, that spark in each and every being, and to overcome our divisions and to overcome the things that make us feel separate. Hi, my name's Darren. I'm a yoga teacher, a yoga therapist, and a yoga teacher trainer. And on this channel, we discuss areas and topics and concepts in yoga that can help us in our daily lives. One of the things that I think I have gained the most value out of in terms of my own personal yoga practice is coming to an experiential understanding of the fact that in order to cultivate anything in life, we need to practice it. We need to practice cultivating that thing, whatever that is. And specifically in relation to yoga, some of the things that we might look to cultivate are things like patience, things like stability, things like peace, things like joy, and also, crucially, compassion. Now, what that says is that if it takes practice to cultivate those things, if we're not careful, we can also practice unintentionally, nourishing other energies within ourselves that take us away from peace, that take us away from compassion, that take us away from stability. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we face in the world today, if we're not careful, is that we are subconsciously and consciously bombarded with messages of division. For whatever the reason may be, and that's probably a completely different topic, but for whatever the reason may be, we are fed messages that seek to give us the impression that there is an other, and that somehow we are different, and that there are different groups of people, maybe based on the color of their skin, or the country of their origin, or their sexuality, or whatever it may be, and that each of these groups have competing aims that are not compatible, that are diverse, and as a result of that, there needs to be some form of competition mindset between these groups so that one group can win out over another. And unfortunately, this is very much the discourse of our political landscape at the moment. And the challenge with this is that subtly and not so subtly, we can become influenced and infected, perhaps we might say, by some of these stances and by some of these mindsets. And as a result of that, rather than practicing the cultivation of something like compassion or karuna, which is essentially the ability to be able to sit with and feel and understand the pain and the suffering of other beings, we actually start to push away those other beings and come up with all sorts of reasons why we shouldn't be compassionate for them or why we shouldn't find love in our hearts, because the messaging around the fact that they are somehow different, that those people are perhaps somehow less deserving of compassion, that perhaps their circumstances are their own fault, for example, causes us to find an easy get-out clause or escape from needing to cultivate that compassion. And the challenge is, because of course over the last few weeks we've been talking about anxiety in relation to what the Bhagavad Gita counsels in terms of how we overcome that anxiety, is that the more we perceive ourselves to be in a divided world, and the more we perceive ourselves to be different to those people around us, the more that can play into a stoking and an escalation of fear, and therefore anxiety in our own minds and the feelings of such in our bodies. At the essence of yoga, at least from a Vedantic and from an Upanishadic perspective, the idea is that we are all one. That is to say that in the being of every single human, there is a light, there is a divine essence that doesn't favor one human body over another, that doesn't favor one animal body over another. There is an equal infinite speck of divinity in each and every being. And the practices of yoga, according to these traditions, are to be able to not only realize that speck of divinity as our true nature, fundamentally peaceful, fundamentally stable, unchanging and eternal, but to see that speck beyond the personality, beyond the form of each and every being that we come into connection with. Now, if you were to place that on a spectrum, you would see that the spectrum of division and seeing things as other and seeing people as other and seeing everyone in unity, there are very, very different ends of the spectrum. One end of the spectrum which causes division not only causes division societally, but also causes division in our own minds. And as a result of that, it increases our likelihood of feeling anxious about the state of affairs, about our neighborhoods, about the places that we live in, about the people that we come into connection with. However, when we open our hearts and when we go deep into our yoga practice and we make compassion and understanding others a key facet or a key pillar of how we interact with the world, we start to be able to go beyond personality. We start to go beyond the limitations of mind, and we begin to see that in everyone's essence, there is this peaceful being, this calm divine essence that transcends all of the division that we are being led to believe exists. And the thing is that once we enter into that state, and once we can see that more and more in people around us, we start to realize actually that we are together, we are unified, we are one. And as a result of that, we don't need to feel fearful, we don't need to feel anxious, because when we see that unity in all beings, we know that we are fundamentally one and the same. But the challenge is that there is so much messaging that comes to us each and every day, telling us how these people are different, how these people don't deserve this, how these people are criminals, how these people are whatever it may be, that we fundamentally get disconnected from our ability to be compassionate to others. What's so interesting, though, is that in the Bhagavad Gita, it literally tells us to strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world, to strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world. That is to say, if we interpret that in a slightly different way, that essentially our lives, as far as they're concerned with moving towards peace and moving towards realization of this divine essence within us, are about actually making connection with other people beyond the divide and seeing what we can do in our own lives to improve their lives, to help to serve them, to help to bring compassion to them, to help bring a listening, kind and caring ear. Now, that's not to say that in the world, tough decisions don't need to be made. It's not to say, for example, that governments don't have really, really challenging circumstances and situations that they have to balance. But I think perhaps the trick is, and this has been stated by so many great sages and saints over the years, is to spiritualize the nature of discussion, to spiritualize the nature of governance, so that that governance also includes a space for the divine. That is to say that when we look, for example, at migrants, we don't just fall into the narrative trap of what we're being told by the powers that be, that we understand that each person, in and of their own right, has some kind of story, some kind of suffering, some kind of pain, some kind of challenge that they are facing or have faced, that they are responding to, that they are perhaps moving away from. And that all they want as well is to find peace, to find love, to find stability. But when we don't take care to address these issues in a way that is full of love, in a way that is full of compassion, in a way that is full of kindness, we end up brutalizing those people even more, on top of what they have already experienced in their lives, which may be even more challenging than we can possibly imagine. So the Bhagavad Gita, through Krishna's discourse, counsels us actually to see the divine in all beings. Because when we see the divine in all beings, We see our connection to all beings rather than our differences, rather than our divides. And this is something that we can practice with people very, very close to us. I often do this with my 3-year-old daughter, where I look at her and I try to let go of the fact that she is in a child's body. I let go of her name. I let go of her personality traits. And I look straight into her eyes as long as she'll allow me to do it. And even if I'm not looking into her eyes, I can still feel that I'm in the presence of the divine within her. It's not a divinity that's exclusive to her. It's a divinity that is in all beings. And we can practice looking beyond the personality. We can practice looking beyond the form and connecting to that divine essence. And as we said right at the start, when we start practicing looking at the divine essence in all beings, when we start practicing the cultivation of karuna and compassion, it becomes more and more easy for us to bring those qualities and to bring those perspectives into our day-to-day lives, so that the next time you happen to be in a convenience store or in a shop, or you happen to be next to someone on the train, you can look at them and you can practice seeing right through their personality, right through their form, and see that they too are a bright spark of shining divinity in the form of the person in front of you. And if we can bring that more and more into our interactions and into our relationships, both personal relationships and societal relationships, this can have a wonderful impact on the way that we relate to the world, and of course also how it affects our own tendency towards anxiety. Because when we feel that community, when we feel that coming together, we feel supported, we feel love, we feel unified. And that is the whole purpose of yoga, is to move towards a state of unifying, not just with all of the layers within, but all of the layers around us, to realize that we are all singing and dancing together in this great melee that is called life, that doesn't always seem to give us the things that we want or that we think we need, but actually is dancing with this perfect intelligence on this sort of path towards evolution. So this is something that we can really truly practice in our day-to-day lives. Again, as the Bhagavad Gita says, strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world. And through that lens, if we repeat that every morning, almost as an affirmation or as some kind of mantra, strive in this day to serve the needs of the world as best as we can, to bring love, to bring kindness in each and every interaction, not in a way that's not authentic, but at least also to ensure that we bring down the violence that we in our own lives perpetuate to people around us, no matter how subtle. This is the way that we can overcome fear. This is the way that we can overcome hate. This is the way that we can come together in the true spirit of this ancient wisdom. So please, please do reflect on this timeless wisdom from the Bhagavad Gita, not my wisdom, ancient wisdom that has come to us through many, many thousands of years. And the aim of this wisdom is to bring us all to Shanti, to peace. So as always, I hope you found this video useful, and I look forward to sharing more with you soon. Namaste.